Tonight, we are joined by Dr. Michael Bregy, Superintendent of the Beverly Hills Unified School District. We are at Beverly Hills High School on the second floor patio. Dr. Bregy, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So you have been superintendent in the past. You've been superintendent of the Beverly Hills Unified School District for the past 2 years now. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about your background? You've been a teacher, you've been a superintendent.
Sure. I began my career as a teacher. I started teaching third grade and then realized I wanted a little bit older of a student group, so I taught middle school for a while and I taught high school for a while, specifically math, and then it became an assistant principal and then principal of a high school for about 10 years of a high school. 2,500 students, and then I began my career in upper administration and at the district office, and this is my 9th year as a superintendent.
So that was all in Chicago,
yes.
And you moved back here 2 years ago. So what is the difference between Chicago and Beverly Hills and the different districts and the largeness of that one and the small one of this one?
So that's a really good question because there are so many things that are the same. The students are exactly the same. Teachers are the same types of issues with technology in the classroom, keeping kids engaged in the classroom. So many of those educational strategies, like those are all the same. I think what's really changed is coming into a small system that really needed a different structure and support, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit later, but this is the first time that I was working into a system that was more of a system of schools rather than a school system, and that was a little bit different to me.
And what are some of your responsibilities as superintendent and some of your personal goals?
Well, the first responsibility I have is student safety. I mean, we can't have anything else. The second goal and responsibility that I have is student achievement. And you can't have that unless kids feel safe and secure. So safety, first and foremost, is my biggest priority. Second is academic achievement, and then third is the personal, the whole child, offering students opportunities to explore and find themselves. And then there's finances as well comes into play, and kind of the list goes on.
And what is your vision for this upcoming year for the district as a whole?
As a whole, the district needs to embrace engaging students in the classroom. I think that we have a lot that's happening in the district with technology, and I think that those are great things. The one-to-one technology initiative is fantastic, but going with that with a device is the purpose of having the device, and having the device also serve as a device where students are using that in their classroom, in their lesson, the teacher using that instead of just as a tool for the internet. So that's a big challenge going forward for the school district, is incorporating the technology into the actual lesson planning in the classroom.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the one-to-one program that is coming out in the high school this year?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great rollout. So we've done that at the elementary level and the middle school level, and now rolling out into the high school. Last year, we started with laptops for our teachers, and so now we're ready to move that system and device into the hands of our students, and that will be happening very soon. We're also looking at the take-home program as well, so that students can actually take the device home. And that's happening this year. And so that's a big initiative for the school district, and also a big initiative for our staff. So what we're trying to do is make sure that our staff has the necessary professional development behind using the device in their classrooms appropriately. And people are pretty excited about that.
And what do you see as the importance of having such technological resources as part of school life?
I think that it's it goes back to what are the tools necessary for life. I remember just one short story about when I was a math teacher, and I remember the math teacher across the hall said to me, I'm not letting students use a calculator in class. And I remember even as a new teacher thinking, why not? I mean, they're available, and that is before the internet and before it. And it's funny because that's what's kind of happened today is like we have to prepare students for the real world, and that access to immediate information is it's important, and it will always be there. But how do you use that appropriately? And for me as a superintendent, how do you keep staff with the right professional development to know what that balance is between using the technology in class and then other traditional means in the classroom?
So most students are going to start out in the district in kindergarten and go all
Yep.
the way to 12th grade throughout their entire childhood. They're spending it here in the district. So what steps is the district taking to make sure there's a seamless transition throughout kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school?
So the current system is, in some of our buildings, we have a transitional kindergarten program, but it's a kindergarten through 8th grade system in 4 of our schools in the city. So typically, there's been a very little transition going from our primary grades to more of an intermediate to more of a middle school because it's been in the same school and in that campus. So there's very little what I would call transition. And then the big transition for the district is going from our 4 middle schools into our large high school. So what I've observed in the last couple of years is a really good the crew program where kids are being welcomed into the school, and I think that there's more we can do in that area because I feel like to be welcomed and to be accepted, that's pretty tough when you have been in the district in the kindergarten to 8th grade and then to come to the high school, as well as a lot of our students that were in private school coming to high school for the first time. So I do think that that's an area that we do a pretty good job, but I don't think it meets the needs of all of our kids. So I'm excited to start exploring new ways for transitioning our students.
And I know coming from a private school myself, I was very welcomed at the high school, and I hope that all students get that opportunity.
See, and I love to hear stories like that because there are so many success stories like that, but it is a pretty overwhelming experience if that's your big first transition.
Exactly. So on the topic of reconfiguration, the district has been discussing this for a while, and there's been a lot of recent steps forward with that. So can you explain to us what reconfiguration would mean and the timeline looking forward?
Sure. So reconfiguration is looking at our entire school system. And I said this before, and I'll kind of connect it, that I felt like we were a system of schools. So 4 different schools really doing for the most part, their own thing. There's different activities, there's different clubs, there's oftentimes a different curriculum, and things are being handled differently. So it's with the new reconfiguration that's coming up, we're actually going to be getting a better handle on putting more people together. So for example, through reconfiguration, we're going to be moving one of our schools, El Rodeo, offline, and those students, K through 5, will go to Hawthorne. And so that what happens is a school like Hawthorne that may have like 2 sections of 2nd grade or 3rd grade, with the additional students coming in, we're now going to have like 5 different classrooms of 2nd grade, 5 different classrooms of 3rd grade, and so on. So what we're doing is we're creating a network of community learners where we have teachers that actually have other teaching partners with them. Because think about if you're a 2nd grade teacher, you might have one teacher to work with. And if you don't have the same style, many times you kind of work on your own. And that's what's been happening. So it's like if there are 5 teachers all teaching the same grade level, think of the powerhouse, the collaboration that could happen. So we're really excited about that. So through reconfiguration, that's one of the components is trying to put a community of learners together, whether it's the teachers and the students. And so we're going to be going from 4 TK through 8 schools to we're taking 1 offline for construction, that's El Rodeo, and those students will, K through 5, will all go to Hawthorne. The TK through 5 students at Beverly Vista will all move to Horace Mann, which is a brand new building that's gone through modernization and construction, and it's gorgeous and has $60,000 worth of technology in every
Wow.
classroom. It's gorgeous. And then the students currently in Hawthorne that are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that are at El Rodeo that are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade this year, and also the Beverly Vistas 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, Horseman, they're all going to be in one place. We're going to have one consolidated middle school, and that will be at Beverly Vista, which is geographically more in the center of the city. So that's great access, and it is the largest footprint for playing fields and to have a middle school. So that will start in the fall in August. So El Rodeo will be offline for 2 years for construction, but that's going to be our reconfiguration going forward. So it's for the next couple of years, 2 schools are going to be TK through 5, and then 1 6th, 7th, and 8th grade building.
And what would be other benefits of having a dedicated middle school where all Beverly Hills students go into one middle school and then will later feed into the high school?
So many benefits. So I'll try to hit the top because I could spend 5 hours talking about this. Middle school is it's the time of life for students where they're adolescents, and it's the second largest growth period in someone's life is becoming an adolescent in middle school. The first is obviously when you're born, and then the second is when you're an adolescent, and it's the time where, and I don't know if you remember this in your own life, but it's a tough time emotionally, and and I taught middle school. I mean, one day somebody's crying, and the next they're laughing, and the next they're it's a time in your life where you're adjusting, and you are also you're growing, and so it's about exploration, and so middle school should be all about choices, and whether it's athletically or with with a music instrument, it's like you should have the opportunity to really do anything, be anything, and explore it, and still have the opportunity to say, I tried this and I didn't like it, so I'm going to move on to this. And so middle school gives you that opportunity because we currently don't have that. We've got some outside club teams, but we don't really have like a school team. Like we should have. We should have 8th grade basketball, 7th grade basketball. I mean, we should have our own team. And so I'm excited about that. Academically, though, is with such small numbers of students that we've had in classes, it kind of goes back to what I talked about before about the system and structure that we currently have. So right now what's happening is we look at our staffing that's needed. And then we look at the staffing, and then we take the students and we say, where can we put them? I mean, think about what I just said. Where can we put them? That's such a disservice to our students. What has to happen is we need to flip this model where instead of where are we putting staff because this is the way that the structure works, we need to get the interests of our students and where are they at. And so that's what should drive the schedule and the staffing is what do our students need? And so that hasn't been happening, and there are a ton of examples, but we have some students that are ready for an honors class or an accelerated class, and yet I get the telephone calls because there's no room for them, because they can't fit it in their schedule, because when you have low class numbers, and if let's say it's 75 students like in 8th grade, there's only so much you can do with where students can go. And so if a class is full, then they have to take something else. And it's not by choice, that's what we have open. And so that's going to switch, that'll change with reconfiguration. And I think for teachers, and this is what's going to be really great for teachers, is that we currently have teachers, because of the low numbers, to fill up a full day for a teacher schedule, they're teaching 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, like 3 different grade levels. And so that's pretty hard for like our teachers. My hat is off to, I mean, to be able to do that and do that well, because you've got not only different, levels of maturity where students are, but it's a different lesson for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and that's every day. So to do your lesson planning as a teacher and do it well, they're working really hard. Having more students in the same school, in the same grade level, not only gives the student choices, but then the teacher can become more like the content expert. And I can tell you, coming from a large middle school and where I was an 8th grade teacher, I taught 8th grade, and I had an algebra course, and I also had a geometry course we were able to offer, because we were able to do that because then I taught all 8th grade. I really got to know my students. So there's a big change for teachers where they're not having to teach all over the place, and they're going to teach one group of students, and it's kind of a school within a school model. So they'll have 125 to 150 students, 2 of those groups in each grade level, and we'll have a core group of teachers that they teach those students every day. And you'll have the science teacher next to the math teacher, next to the social studies teacher, next to the English teacher. And they're all right there, and the teachers can basically put their arms around them and support them, and they really get to know their students. So it works on an academic level, but also from a personal level as well.
That support is very necessary for students, especially, as you said, in the middle school time when it's such a difficult time and they're growing up.
Yep, definitely.
So how do you think the dedicated middle school will affect the children when they get into high school and the high school community as itself? Because as I know, as a high school student, there is a little bit of a division.
Yep.
There are people who created such bonds, and they're
Yes.
kind of isolated within themselves. So how do you think the dedicated middle school will change that and get people to meet new people and be more sociable?
I'm so glad you said that. And this comes right from my heart and my passion is that every student is valued and respected and accepted. And I think that it's really hard when we do have a lot of students that start in kindergarten all the way through 8th grade and then come together. And I think that when you're 14 and you're 15 years old and you've established a lot of those bonds, there's opportunity at the high school level, but I think that when you're growing up and you're exploring, to have that opportunity to meet other people other than the people just in that same grade level, I think that that's pretty critical to the success of high school. And right now it's kind of hit or miss. If those students can get involved freshman year, that's great. Those students tend to be our most successful students. But if you don't know anybody, you might shy away from that. So I think that this is going to change the culture and climate because we're able to offer more for students. And here's what I would say about that. KBEV is one of the most successful programs that I've ever seen in my career. And I've said that publicly before. This is an amazing experience. But if we were able to offer like a KBEV mini, something that is like an introductory, that's our job to get you ready for high school. So to grab the interest of students when they're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to see if this is something that they want to do, I think it's all about what their pathways. And I think that it's our job and responsibility to tap into those pathways when they're in middle school. And then, so the high school doesn't have to do that heavy lifting. And so whether it's KBEV, whether it's volleyball or basketball or robotics, that can't be offered to just certain students. And right now we have that. Certain buildings, one of our middle schools has a theater program, but the other 3 don't. And it's like, I just don't, we're one unified school district. And so we need to provide the support like we're one. So that's an advantage of what will happen.
And getting one step higher, how are students getting prepared for college and any other future plans they have and future successes?
So I think that our high school does an amazing job. Our counselors are fantastic. And I think that we have the right number of counselors, and so they provide that necessary support. I think it's the responsibility of all the employees to get to know as many students as possible, and I think that that's what's helping us. We do great things with our curriculum and ensuring that kids are college and career ready, and I think that those are great things. I think that more than that is the opportunities, because these are the things that when students go on to colleges, they're just not looking at your transcript anymore as far as your academic courses. that's super important, but colleges and universities now are saying, what will this student offer us? And that's been a change over the years, is, what are you going to do as a student to contribute to a college or university? And I think that we do a great job of that, and that helps students become successful.
And switching topics a little bit, you said earlier that El Rodeo will be going under construction for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So Horace Mann took 6 years to completely change.
It did.
So what's the difference between the Horace Mann construction that happened and recently finished and this upcoming El Rodeo construction that's only expected to take 2 years?
Okay, so that's a good question, and really kind of a hot button right now with a lot of people in the community. So I wasn't here when they did the construction on Horace Mann. However, when I first started 2 years ago, it was the biggest complaint that I had, was coming from parents and teachers because of the ongoing construction. The district made a very good decision, and that was that they wanted to keep the old buildings, and they wanted to gut them out and take out all of the hazardous material, but they wanted to keep the structure and the sovereignty of the schools. That made the project a lot more complex, because when you're rebuilding the school, it's an existing site, so you have to bring everything in by cranes, and so it makes it a lot more complex. It was very difficult on the staff and the surrounding neighbors to have students on that footprint because of the safety issue, and because of the noise, and because there's city limits too on when you can actually do the work. Parents now have said to me, and have been very vocal about this, if they would have known 6 years ago that it was going to be this difficult, that they would have said, take us out of the school as well. The difference with El Rodeo is it has a different footprint. So the footprint where El Rodeo is, the building, the actual school building, sits directly in the center of the campus. Horace Mann was a little bit off to the side, so that they could kind of chunk their work a little bit and work on sections, but El Rodeo is like right in the center. And since, as I mentioned, they're keeping the building, the actual building, it's the portables right now where the students are all around in a kind of a circle. It's not safe. I mean, could it be done? Yes. Is there a larger risk that there could be a safety issue? There is. And then there's some other things too. The construction is, the escalation for pricing in construction is about 20% each year. So a project like El Rodeo was going to take like 5, maybe 6 years, like Horace Mann. By doing it in 2 years, if you move all the students and staff out, the district can turn that building around and remodernize the entire building to look, very much like Horace Mann, and save $16 million because it's all done at once. And reduce that risk for safety, and really the other piece is the learning environment is, not going to be interrupted. However, everything in life is a trade-off, and so that's hard for the community, and so these are the difficult decisions that I have to make recommendations to the Board of Education, because it's uprooting a community of people to leave their building for 2 years and then come back when it's finished. And I don't take that lightly. I know that that's very difficult. But when I think about the safety and when I think about the learning environment, I know that it's a good decision for everyone. But it's definitely something that's, we just don't take lightly. To get up and move schools, it's a difficult thing.
And construction has also restarted on our high school campus,
Yes, finally.
just right over there.
Yep.
So what is the timeline for that? How is that going?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this plan. I think that this is going to be the most beautiful high school campus in the country. I can't wait. I mean, I look at these pictures and I can't believe it. I'm just so excited. I wish that you had the opportunity, because it's so beautiful. But when you come back and visit. The last bond for the voters was Measure E, and so that money is now being finished, and so buildings B1 and B2 are being they're under construction now. I'm sure you've heard the noise, and and it's long overdue with those because of some of the delays at the state level. That should be finished within a couple of years, and then we have the auditorium and the Salter Theater. That's what we call B1, B2, and those drawings get released next. And that's what people have a hard time understanding, is that there's so much oversight to school property. That's not like if you redo your home or a business. There's such scrutiny when it comes to building schools and codes, and there's just a lot of bureaucracy, and so and that gets held up at the state level, and we can't do anything until we get that approval. So B3 and B4, so Salter Theater, and then also the big theater, which I now just slipped my mind, the Peters.
Yeah, the Peters
Auditorium. So that is, which is beautiful. I snuck in there just to look at it. It's gorgeous. But when that's redone, that should be in a few years. So that'll be the next piece. Then the rest of the campus, those drawings haven't been finished yet. But in the next 6 years, which I know sounds like an eternity, it does to me because I would like it to be done tomorrow. But that will be completed. And I do want to say that wasn't going to be completed until the bond was just recently passed, Measure BH. That money, which is supported by the community, will then finish out the high school. So the good news is that we have the financial funding to finish this beautiful project. The downside is that it's the state bureaucracy through the Department of State Architecture is still really slow at returning these drawings. So I'm hoping what happens is, like with El Rodeo, we did not expect for those drawings all at once to come out, and now we're expecting those all to come out at once, which is going to give us the opportunity to do the entire campus at once. So we tell people 6 years, but it could be sooner if they get their act together and improve the drawings, and then we can start the building.
We hope to see it soon.
Yeah.
So you spoke a lot about how the community was very involved with Measure BH, passing that, and how you're very available to parents who have contacted you about their concerns. So what do you see as the value of partnering with parents, students, community members, and the city?
Well, I mean, there is so much change that's happening in just not our city, but just our school district. And I don't say this lightly either. There is more going on in our school district than I believe any other school district in the country. When you think about the oil well decommissioning that's happening, and then the metro staging area, the construction area. I mean, we're surrounded by change and design and building, which is very exciting. But that's so much going on that being connected with parents and with our students in the city, keeping that communication going is really key. In fact, after reconfiguration vote this last Tuesday, I sent a letter to the city just to let them know what's happening with the school district, and it's important that people kind of know what's going on. And I think that there's so much going on there. It almost feels like there's no way to keep up with the communication because things are happening and changing so quickly. But having a good relationship and having an open door policy and having people, I go to events all the time, most evenings, and being available to parents for questions is that's key. Is being available for people to ask questions.
So one of the main concerns of parents, students, community members, and just everyone around here is the Metro's plans to tunnel under our high school to extend their purple line. Yep. So what do you see as the importance of going against that plan and trying to move the Metro?
So I think the biggest difficulty is that it is a huge concern to us, and we're working and we're fighting that in a court system, and now thanks to our students that have shown great support, it's important to show that visibility at their meetings, and the walkout that we had was it far surpassed any student activity that I've ever been involved in. To see Beverly students get that passionate about their safety and their community and their school, that was, I mean, something I'll never forget ever. But our work isn't done. I think the battle for us is this. We are concerned, and I think that it's necessary to keep fighting them because it just doesn't make sense what they're doing. I mean, when you're designing a rail system like a subway and you have alternatives to put directly underneath, it doesn't make sense on any level. So I do think it's important to keep fighting it. We're in this weird position though where one of my struggles now is I know that some families are really afraid. And so it's something that I haven't really talked about, but there's a balance because I can't say, unequivocally that, everything's gonna be fine. Because I am really worried about that staging area being 15 feet away. So I have a lot of concerns about that, but I do think that, the necessary thing to do is to keep pushing and keep fighting because there is an alternative. If there wasn't, if they said to us and our experts said, sorry, Dr. Bregy, this is it. There's nothing you can do. Then I think that I would look at different ways to mitigate, there would be something else I'd want to do. But when we know that there are several options, we're not going away. We can't. I mean, this is something that very few decisions are generational involved. And this is something that will impact, the school district is like 83 years old. Okay, think about like the next 83 to 100 years. This decision impacts those students, and this is a big decision. So it's not trying to scare people, but my personality is, and this isn't for everybody, but I'm just going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to be really blunt with you, and you may not like it, but I have my concerns about safety, and I'm not one that is spooked very easily, but I'm a little bit worried, and so it's my job to make sure that we do everything that we can, and now that I have the support of our community and our students, there's a lot of work to do, but I don't give up.
Okay, so can you speak a little bit about the efforts that the district has taken, not only this year where the issue has really arisen to the public eye, but also the past 7 years, what the district has been doing to try to move this metro so it's not under our only high school?
So the district, and before I interviewed for my position, I did a lot of research and studying because I knew that this was going on. And so I was amazed at what the district did in the past. And it was an interesting approach. They really tried to handle most of this in the courtroom. And I see why now. Like I didn't at first, but you want to be able to find a resolution without, scaring people and 7 years ago, there was, you didn't see what you're seeing now because, now you can see it, hear it, smell it. When that's not there, it's like that's, it's hard for people to even get their head around. So the district would put out press releases and, and there'd be in the newspaper, but it was the kind of thing that people would read it and but if you don't see it and you don't, and you think, oh, they're fighting it. So there weren't a lot of people getting involved at the time. If I were here then, I would have done what we've done now then. I would have made it my mission to show people, to see, because it's great what's been done in the courtroom. That was necessary and that's still going on. But it would have been my mission to very early on get the students involved then, and I think that would have been something to do that may have been beneficial at the time. So there are still suits that are going on. There's an environmental lawsuit that's going on, and we just had a victory 2 weeks ago. It just goes to show you how slow the court system moves. But this last decision in the courtroom said to Metro, they had an environmental report and there was some missing information and we had questions about where some of their data was coming from, and they weren't sharing the documents that supported some of their information. And so in our last court victory about a month ago, the judge ruled that you do have to provide these things to the school district so that they can see where the data is coming from. And so that was a huge victory for us. So that should be coming within the next couple of weeks. And so so we're still in that in the courtroom. And then there's also some discussion about predetermination, and that is where and how that route was selected, because that was not the original route that was originally selected, which was along Santa Monica Boulevard, which, talk about when I said not making sense, that made total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, with the new mall, the Century City Mall, and like that's exactly where you would want that subway to stop. And so this on Constellation, like it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so that's kind of where we're at. There's a lot of work to be done. But they are finishing their staging area right now, and so but we're watching it closely, and there's just a lot more to come with that.
So as you said, just a few weeks ago, students took a stand against the Metro in our walkout, and you played a great role of supporting us through that. So what do you see as the most important thing about supporting the students in student activism and what they'll get from that in the future?
So here's what I learned, and I've been doing this a long time, but I learn every day something new. And working with Sean Tooby and Ryan Abershami, they put me in check a couple times when I needed it, because I like to support and I like to get in there and collaborate, and they pushed back on me in the very beginning and said, look, this is run by the students. And so, at one time, I think it was Ryan that said, there were some students in the room, and Ryan said, respectfully, can I ask that we just meet alone?
Yeah, I was there.
Were you there for that? And I was like, wow, you're right. This is student run, and it's like, have faith in our students. And so I did that walk back to my office, and I thought, wow, thank goodness he said something, and that was in the very, very beginning. So I thought that was a very valuable lesson for me as an educator and as a teacher and a superintendent, that, our students will rise to that level. And, it was a great arrangement, because then I knew that, look, I'm here to support you, and they would come to me for questions, and they would run things past me, and that's really the way that should be with high school students. And so I learned a lot about that, and I'm hoping that when students saw the result of that walkout, that truly was student-led and student-built and student-run. So I hope that people saw that, and they realized that they can do just about anything. I mean, that was a massive effort, and to have 1,500, 1,600 people, that's pretty amazing.
So that did bring a lot of awareness to this topic, and now a lot of students who are in the younger ages are very concerned about coming to the high school, and so are their parents, and so are prospective families. So what would you say to them moving forward, what they can expect, and what we shouldn't be nervous about?
So, I mean, I think that the most important thing is to reach out. Here's what I'm finding the struggle is when we put out information that people are in so many different places. Like, you would think that most people have kept up to speed with what's going on. And then when we put information out, if you don't meet them where they're at, they just discount it. And then there's some people that are so over involved with it that it's like they know everything. And then there's the most, which is kind of in the middle. And so there's so many people we need to get to, but it's trying to provide them what they need. So what I try to do is just be really available. I had 2 parents today that have students in middle school that are coming to the high school. And the problem that we're having is that, like, people are just getting misinformation. And so it's like I thought the town hall was great. That was, what we need to do is do more personal meetings, and because it gets lost in print now. It just, the newsletters get long, and we lead busy lives, and people are reading them on their phone, and they don't click to this link. And so I think that personal interaction, the time I spent with a couple parents today, they came in with all kinds of misinformation, which they got from somebody else. And so that's great for us to know, but I think that we need to start doing more things, and not just doing something here at the high school, but I think that we need to go into our current elementary and middle schools and start meeting with parents and our staff more than we have in the past.
And moving to a different kind of safety, our school safety. As you know, across America, there's been a lot of unfortunate incidents that have been happening in schools. So what steps is the district taking to prevent these kinds of issues and to make students really feel safe and comfortable coming to school?
Well, the first thing we did was something that most schools districts don't do, and we did a safety audit. And so that has some risk to it, because when you have an outside agency come in and give you a full report on your safety, you have to be open to hearing, everything that you've done right or unfortunately wrong. And so we have a stellar team that came in, and these are your highest level of security, people that have been in the military and overseas, and they have incredible credentials, and they spent some time on our campuses, and they were able to penetrate our campuses, and getting that result back was really eye-opening for me, and because I knew that we were pretty open campus, more so here in California than I was used to, but I was really surprised at the lack of consistency of some of our safety protocols, and not that it's any one person's fault, but we have changes of principals, we have changes of staff, we have, and then people come on, and it's not done, and there was this big. There's this thinking that that's not going to happen in Beverly Hills. Nothing won't happen. That won't happen here. And so, getting people to understand that, I shared some of the information with the staff at the opening day rally, and they were pretty surprised too. So that created this awareness. We knew that we needed to have somebody that was on campus that was armed, and that was another decision that most school districts are wrestling with right now. We've made that decision, and the reason we did is we do have security at our schools, but to have somebody that is armed is somebody that's right there on the scene. We have a great police department. Their average time is, I believe, 2 minutes reporting to an incident, but for us, and being a high-profile school district, it's you have the largest amount of the density of young people in any one place in the entire city is in our schools. And so we've made that tough decision to have armed individuals on campus. And that, again, some people believed in that, some people did not believe in that. But for us, it was part of a new system. And so that was, I think, a great addition, and they're here, and they work very well with our police department. They've gone through training, and we have a great relationship between this is what the police department does, this is what our armed security does, and that has caught the eye of the attention of the nation. So we were just invited to the White House to share what our security program is, and so that was great to be able to talk to senior level leaders in Washington about what we're doing here in Beverly Hills. And the most exciting part is the kind of that next part is the thing that people haven't tackled yet in any school district yet is the preemptive piece, because we've got the reactive piece, we've got the staff professional development piece. Like, those are all things that are going well, and we're consistent now in all of our schools. But the one thing that nobody's doing is this preemptive piece. And when I say that, when you hear about these events like on TV, you always get people saying, how the reporters go up to people and they start asking about like the person, who was doing the shooting, and 9 times out of 10, you'll hear people say, you know what, I always wondered about that student, or, you know what, there was something, he was kind of an odd person, or, there was something that wasn't right. And so when you hear that so many times, that's like, okay, what could we have done to provide, better assistance, better help at an earlier, instead of waiting for something to happen. And so the next piece of our security plan is a really exciting one, and it's called the Fusion Center. And it's this center within the philosophy is, how can we work together as a city and a community to ensure that if there's something that's happening in the community, that we're sharing that information with the police and the police are sharing it with us. So it's really, Fusion is more about kind of a fancier way of saying it's a communication sharing. And I'll give you an example. So not that this was a violent issue, but there was something that happened in the community where the police had to visit a home where there was a domestic issue between the father and the mother. And there was a second grade student that witnessed the whole thing and was really troubled. The next day, this student shows up at school. And so in having to go through that and then show up at school and then we don't know about it is kind of that missing link sometimes. And it may not be a violent issue, but it's that this student maybe needed help after seeing that. And so just the information sharing, so the police chief happened to say something to me because we were meeting. She goes, I just want to let you know this happened with one of your second graders. And I go, thank you for telling, what school? And so after our meeting, I immediately went to that school so I could speak with the counselor, just to say, look, I don't need this broadcasted all around, but you need to keep your eye on the second grader, because how do you handle something like that when you're that young? So whether it's an issue that there's somebody has behavior that isn't appropriate, or something in the community, we shouldn't be separate entities. We know information about our students, we share, we're one community. So that Fusion Center, whether it's those types of situations, or the big one is social media. And so there is a component of this communication sharing that actually looks at social media, ahead of time to see if something is, been planned, or somebody says something like, that might be something physical the next day. We get that before or while that's being broadcasted to everybody. Awesome. Yeah, so it's exciting, because I feel like that's the one area that hasn't been looked at. Everyone just reacts. We want to try to get to it before something happens.
It's very important. And
yeah.
It's so nice to hear that people are taking steps for our safety and we can feel safe at school.
Yep, definitely.
So switching tones a little bit,
sure.
There's going to be an election soon, appointing new members of the Board of Education for our school district. So what is the importance of the Board of Education? What kind of authority do they have, and what is their impact on students?
So the Board of Education is 5 individuals that they are elected. It is an unpaid position, but it's a position that is there's such hardworking people. They know everything about the district, from operations to academics. They govern our policies and our procedures and our protocols, our finances, and so it's like having a full-time job on top of the job that they already have, and they don't get paid. And it's usually the types of things that are decided by a Board of Education are, and I'll just use this last couple of examples that we talked about. The armed security, the reconfiguration plan, the closing of one of our school sites for construction, El Rodeo. Those are some pretty big decisions, and so we as staff, so my cabinet and leadership team that I work with, we do kind of all the work and do all of the information, and then we do presentations to the Board of Education, and then they vote on, they ask questions and clarify, and many times give really good suggestions, and then they vote on an issue. So it's again, these are types of things that they're controversial, they're emotional, and more than anything, it's bringing change to the community. And so as a board member, they have to sort out their own personal feelings with some of the issues, as well as, the community who elected them. So I think it's one of the toughest positions to have, because the decisions aren't easy. And so in running for office is difficult. You really put yourself out there when you run for an election.
And as superintendent, you said you have a cabinet yourself. So who does that involve?
So I have somebody that works in our human resources department, which is very typical for an organization that has a large amount of staff. I have somebody that is heading up special education, which is a big department within our school. I have somebody that is in charge of teaching and learning, so somebody who is my point of contact for curriculum. And I also have somebody on the cabinet that is technology. And so somebody that also does finances. So it's a very small group of people that are at the district office that are essentially running the district. And then we also report to the Board of Education. So even in a district that is our size, we're a district that is a very involved district. So people have high expectations of their students and of their staff, and so it's a very small team to take on as much change as we've had.
And as we said previously, you've been superintendent for the past 2 years. So what are the biggest changes that you've noticed, not only in the past 2 years, but in the past 50 years of our district?
Gosh, I think the reconfiguration piece is, the district has had its same structure, since the 20s. So that's the biggest change there. I think for in the areas of teaching and learning, it's definitely the technology piece, and I think that is, it's hard to keep up with that. And to give you an example, when Horace Mann was going through its modernization, in the plans, in the drawings, we said we want to have a district standard so that every classroom has the same level of technology and they're wired the same way. And and I said before that the drawings have all been delayed in the DSA, the Department of State Architecture, and it's like that. So just when you think you have that's going to be our standard, within a couple of years that it took to get those drawings, and then the drawings come back, and it was like, okay, wait, there's a completely now new set of what a standard should be for technology. So I think, to answer your question, I think that there's this rapid speed of change and innovation. And so trying to stay on top of that while you're trying to plan has really changed. I don't think it's ever been like that. In fact, if you think about it, and I can tell you this confidently, that in my lifetime, this is the most amount of change in education that's ever happened. And it makes me a little nervous, because what is the next 5 and 10 years going to bring? So I think it's that rapid level of change. And, it's very much in the technology area. I think what's also changed is how people get their information. And I think that, when there was limited ways, I think that the pace of life was at a different level, and I think it was a little bit slower. And I think that people took time to, come to meetings and read a newsletter from your school. And I think that, that those things are kind of flying by the wayside, because people are now getting their information more in text messages, and everything we do here is complex. And think about the last time you had to, when you were texting, and it was something really complex, and how difficult that was, to formulate that in a way that you could express communication, but in a short, burst of information. And I think that is something that just boggles my mind, how we're going to do that, because I don't see that we're not getting any slower. And it's how do you, when people are used to getting information being pushed to them and bursts of information, that works for a lot of things, but not I want to talk to you about reconfiguration or Metro. So that, to me, I think that's probably the biggest change of them all.
So there's so much to look forward to this coming year and so much for the community to look forward to for the coming years. And we are so excited to see what happens with this district.
I am too. This has been a great experience. It's been a very, it's been an exciting 2 years. Things that I never thought in my wildest dreams we'd be doing and working, but there's so many great things that are about to happen. So we are on the cusp of some pretty cool things happening here.
We are very excited. So Dr. Bregy, thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
me.
Eva. Thank you very much.
And thank you guys for watching.